The Truth Within Fear, an Inner Exploration. This story explores human responses to different levels of fear and anxiety through the analogy of horses. Each horse and good person shows different reactions to various stimuli and situations, symbolizing the diverse psychological responses of humans. Through the metaphor of 4 horses and 4 good people, this story shows us the truth of life and the path to finding inner peace. This symbolizes the path to enlightenment and truth in Buddhism, showing the process of understanding reality through introspection and external experiences. Now, let's lend our ears to this ancient wisdom and think together about how we can apply it to our modern lives. The champak tree was spreading a pleasant fragrance around. Butterflies were fluttering, seeking nectar from the flowers. The Buddha sat under the shade of the Bodhi tree and spoke to his disciples.
Today, let us talk about the 4 types of horses.
The Buddha said this gazing into the distant sky and began the following story.
Let's say there is a horse here now. This horse suddenly became agitated when the trainer entered the stable with a sharp, thorny wheel.
What on earth does the trainer intend to do with that thorny wheel?
It couldn't stand still due to anxiety and fear, wondering how to escape from the thorny wheel. Next, let's say there is another horse here. This horse was not particularly afraid when it saw the thorny wheel, but it suddenly became agitated when the thorns touched its body. What on earth does the trainer intend to do with this thorny wheel?
It couldn't stand still due to anxiety and fear, wondering if the trainer might try to put it around its neck.
The Buddha slowly looked around at the monks and continued his words.
Let's say there is yet another horse here. This horse was not afraid when it saw the thorny wheel held by the trainer, and it was not startled when the thorns touched it, but suddenly became agitated when the thorns pierced its body and tore its flesh. It couldn't stand still due to anxiety and fear, wondering what the trainer intended to do to it. Let's say there is still another horse here. This horse was not afraid when it saw the thorny wheel, and it was not startled when the thorns touched its body. It was not trembling with fear, even when the thorns tore its flesh, but it suddenly became agitated when its bones were scraped. It was because it couldn't stand still due to anxiety and fear, wondering what the trainer intended to do to it. Monks, remember well that there are 4 kinds of horses in the world like this.
World-honored one, what exactly do these 4 kinds of horses signify?
One of the monks asked, leaning forward as if with his body. The Buddha looked at this monk, gave a slight nod, and began to speak again.
Monks, let's say there is a good person here now. When that person hears that people around them have fallen ill and died, they tremble with fear just from that. And think about how they can escape from that fear. They seek truth in their heart and come to know that all things are impermanent, and eventually acquire eyes that see the truth as it is. Monks, this good person is the same as the first horse I mentioned earlier, which was startled and afraid just by seeing the thorny wheel.
I see.
The monks all directed serious gazes towards the Buddha and listened intently to his story.
Next, let's say there is another good person here. That person was not told that people had fallen ill and died, but when they actually see with their own eyes people who have fallen ill and died, they tremble with fear. And think about how they can escape from that fear. And they single-mindedly seek the truth, come to know that all things are impermanent, and eventually acquire eyes that see the truth as it is. Monks, this good person is the same as the second horse I mentioned earlier, which was startled and afraid when the thorns touched its body. Let's say there is yet another good person. That person did not see people who had fallen ill and died, but when they actually experience it with their own relatives, they tremble with fear. And think about how they can escape from that fear.
And just like the previous person, they single-mindedly seek the truth, come to know that all things are impermanent,
and eventually acquire eyes that see the truth as it is. Monks, this good person is the same as the third horse I mentioned earlier, which was startled and afraid when its flesh was torn.
The Buddha went on to say,
let's say there is another good person here.
That person had never heard stories of people falling ill or dying, nor had they seen such people, but they tremble with fear of illness and death, with the anxiety that their own body may at times become tired, at times suffer, at times weaken, and at times lose its life. And think about how they can escape from that fear. And they single-mindedly seek the truth, come to know that all things are impermanent, and eventually acquire eyes that see the truth. Monks, this good person is the same as the fourth horse I mentioned earlier, which was startled and afraid when its bones were scraped.
Monks, there are 4 kinds of good people in the world like this.
Do not neglect to warmly watch over each of these people and lend them a helping hand. And you yourselves must also acquire eyes that see the truth.
When the Buddha's story ended, the monks bowed deeply and did not raise their heads for a while. Petals of the champak fragrant wood fluttered down onto the shoulders of the Buddha and his disciples. This series of stories illustrates the diversity of human psychology and behavior using the teachings of Buddhism. These lessons are also highly relevant to modern society and provide us with valuable insights. Let's contrast the content of the story with our modern lives. The first point is the different reactions to different stimuli. In the story, the 4 horses are depicted as reacting at different stages. This represents how humans show different reactions to different types of stress and problems. In modern society, it is important to understand and accept that people respond individually to stress and difficulties. The second point is the adaptation to impermanence. In the story, the 4 good people face the reality of illness and death and embark on a journey to seek the truth in response to it. Even in modern times, we continue to face change and uncertainty. This story teaches the importance of accepting and adapting to change. The third point is the pursuit of inner peace and truth. The people in the story who are frightened by fear not only react to external situations, but also seek inner peace and truth. We in the modern world, too, should not be swayed by external problems and difficulties, but are required to look within ourselves and aim for spiritual growth. The fourth point is empathy and assistance. At the end of the story, the importance of warmly watching over each other and lending a helping hand is emphasized. In modern society as well, empathy and support for others are important and contribute to strengthening communities and individual happiness. In summary, this story teaches us to understand individual reactions to different situations, have the flexibility to adapt to change, pursue inner growth, and not forget the importance of empathy and support for others. These lessons are particularly meaningful in today's complex and rapidly changing world. On the other hand, when applying the lessons learned from the story to modern life, it is important to consider the following specific points. The first is understanding the cultural and religious context. The story is rooted in Buddhist teachings, and its metaphors and lessons have meaning within a specific cultural and religious context. For people with diverse cultural backgrounds in modern times, the lessons of this story may not resonate in the same way. For example, the metaphor of the 4 horses symbolizes Buddhist doctrine, but when interpreting this from other cultural or religious perspectives, it is necessary to consider their unique values and beliefs. The second is to avoid generalization. The story shows how horses and humans respond to different fears and challenges, but applying this uniformly to all people should be avoided. In modern society, individual situations, experiences, and psychological states are extremely diverse, and a single story or lesson does not apply to everyone. Therefore, it is important to respect each individual's uniqueness and avoid misunderstandings arising from generalization. The third is the balance between reality and ideals. The story sometimes presents idealized lessons and solutions, but real problems are more complex and multifaceted. For example, the process of the four good people seeking the truth suggests the importance of inner exploration. But in reality, problem solving also requires concrete actions and external support. When applying the lessons of the story to today's complex society, it is necessary to consider both ideals and reality. The fourth is the consideration of social and individual factors. The story mainly focuses on individual psychological growth and inner change, but problems and difficulties in modern society are greatly influenced not only by individual factors, but also by social, economic, and political factors. Therefore, when applying the lessons of the story to modern society, it is important to consider these external factors. The lessons learned from the story can provide valuable insights in modern life, but their application requires flexibility and attention to context.